Okay, so I think we're ready to begin. People are starting to join now. So I would like to welcome Kelly Vaughn of JAG Products and James Clement of King Ranch. And I will allow Kelly and James to take the floor and give their presentation and share with you a little information about entrepreneurship. Welcome, Kelly and James.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm sorry that you can't see me. I don't know what's going on with my camera on my computer. But welcome. James, Clement, and I are both really excited to be here with everyone, talking about a topic that we both feel as business owners and entrepreneurs as, really critical parts to growing and scaling, as an individual, but also as a business owner. So this is going to be a real open dialogue. We're just going to kind of go through some things, that we've felt were important to touch on. And we want everybody to feel free to, engage with us in just having this conversation. So, again, there's me. And my company name is JAG Products. I started when it was back in May of 2000. My girlfriends and I, we went on a cattle drive out in Montana, and it was on that trip that I met one of the wranglers that had a product idea, and it was to make insulators for electric fencing. And so it was just from that crazy fate-filled trip that brought me into the world of being an entrepreneur. And here I am 20 years later, and I still have my business, and I'm starting to grow in other areas. I recently launched JAG Organic Supply, and that's one of the things that I've learned the most as an entrepreneur and as a business owner is really the sky's the limit, and you can become, unstoppable. So, do you want to go to the next slide, James? So, getting to know each other, I shared a little bit about me. And what I also wanted to do is, share a little bit about the lessons that I've learned with becoming an entrepreneur. While I was working, or when I started JAG Products, I actually was a corporate employee. I was with the 3M company, and I actually ended up with 30 years with the 3M company. And what I learned from doing both at the same time, there was things about working for the corporate world that I really enjoyed. And then there was things about just having that ownership as an entrepreneur that I really enjoyed. And I always felt that that made me a much more well-rounded person. When my corporate career came to an end in 2018, I did find I was in a state of transition and transformation, because a lot of it was also, you're so used to that culture, you're so ingrained, you've been told, how to act, what to say, how to think in a lot of different ways. And it really did take some time for me to break away from Kelly, the 3M employee, to now just Kelly as, the owner of JAG Products. And who is she? And what is she about? And what are her values? And what are her goals? Instead of always leading by somebody else's. That's what also led me to be in a pursuit of how to be more relatable in my relationships. Building your network. When I was in that state of transition, it really was my network and the people that I met along the way that I realized became a very critical asset in a lot of different applications. One is mentors. Who could I go to for advice? Who could I go to reach and scale to that next level? And how was I going to do that authentically and have people see me not just as that former corporate employee, but now as somebody who is fully vested and working her business full time. So that's why, to me, the more relatable you are in your relationships, the more authentic that you can reach out to somebody and own your personal brand, because that does take time. And it takes time to really decide, really dig deep into who you are and ultimately how that translates to your business, to your career, and to your network. Communication, I feel, is very important. And that is even just in everyday life. As we're communicating with people, it's a lot of times that's the thing that is going to cause something to happen, whether it's a misunderstanding or maybe I didn't say it right, or, maybe I said something that really resonated with somebody. There's a lot of power in how you communicate. Positioning is also part of that, okay? Because what you want to do is you want to filter and craft your unique message. When you do that and you own it, nobody else can copy what is uniquely you. And leaders and followers do not think the same. And many of you have held the position of being very high level elite leaders. Maybe you had a team that was underneath you. And now as you translate that back into either the corporate world or as an entrepreneur or small business owner, when you can start thinking along the lines of what is that prospect thinking, okay? And how do you fit in there? That carries a lot of weight as you establish your position and how you're going to establish the perception of your personal brand. And when I met James, and that's why I wanted to share this story, because it's kind of a unique, funny story. I had been following him on LinkedIn. We're both in the ag industry, and the agricultural industry is something that I've always been very drawn to. And there's a lot of similarities I find between the agricultural industry, and the military. They're both absolutely needed. They're both required in our everyday lives. We need ag and we need military. What I was struggling with was some barriers that I was having. And there was a mutual connection that we had. And I reached out to that mutual connection, and I was kind of sharing, what I was struggling with. And he says, well, I'm going to introduce you to my friend, James. And so I had messaged James a few times on LinkedIn to introduce myself. And then I was taking a trip to Texas. And I just thought, spur of the moment, I'm going to just take a chance. I called him and I said, I'm in Dallas and I know this is last minute, but I'd like to know if I maybe can have 10, 15 minutes of your time. And he said, well, that would be great, except for where I live is about 5 hours away from Dallas. But it just so happens that he was going to be in Fort Worth. So I hopped in a cab. I drove over to Fort Worth. There I met James and his beautiful wife. And I knew I had really just a few minutes to get out what I wanted to say. And that's when you perfect your pitch. You take that time. If I'm going to take that person's time, what do I want them to come away with? And so I made sure that I was professional. I showed up. I let him know I was there. I handed him my product. I think I was talking like 100 miles an hour because I was nervous. But at the end, I shook his hand and I said, thank you very much. And that was it. And I got back into that cab and I drove back to Dallas. And somebody had said to me, they said, you did all that for a 10-minute conversation. And I said, absolutely. I said, because I really wanted this person to meet me and I really wanted this person to see that I was real and authentic. Well, after COVID hit and everything changed, there isn't a single business that has not been impacted by COVID. And I was really struggling to figure out how I was going to pivot and move into some different areas. And I thought, who is somebody that I might be able to reach out to seek out mentorship, that could maybe give me some advice, help me really align my thoughts to what am I really trying to get down to and what do I really want to achieve? Well, James was the first person that I thought of to reach out to. So I sent him a message. I asked if we could connect. We did. I was able to share with him what it was I was trying to accomplish. And just like as any good mentor does, they're not there to be the yes man. They're there to help guide you. And that was the thing that I so valued and so enjoyed. And I'm so excited to introduce James Clement of King Ranch, the founder of Bloody Buckets Cattle Company, to be here with us today, because I know he has that military background. He has that business background. And so everybody, here's James.
Thank you, Kelly. You paid me a lot of compliments. I appreciate you bringing me into this elite meat community and inviting me to speak alongside you. And I want to say the same thing to thank you to Megan and Elite Meat in general for inviting me. Just a quick background on me. I enlisted in the Marine Corps in 2008, later became later commissioned. I've been enlisted officer. I've been active in now reserves still. And the number one reason I stay in the reserves is really to help people transition and to help other reservists kind of make a career, because you are on an island a lot of the time in the military, whether you're active or reserve. And just like they always say, is only you will care about your career. And whoever, I can't see who signed on today, but whoever signed on today, you're taking a step, you're signed up, you're starting it. And that's more than most people do. Most people just sit around until it falls on their lap. Also, I'm currently, so like she said, I started Bloody Buckets Cattle Company. That's in reference to the 28th Division. My grandfather served with them in World War II. The Buckets of Blood Division, the Germans gave them that name because of the patch on their shoulder, the red keystone. And then, and that's the brand we give the cattle. I'm also, I was the horse manager. I still manage the horse program at King Ranch, but I'm now the land resources manager, which is kind of like the land and minerals and roads and infrastructure. And I've also started another cattle company, and then I'm currently getting my executive MBA with Cornell, and that's also really helped me leap forward, and I'll talk more about that. But in terms of a resource, Kelly and I both decided, like, look, we'll give you all our speech today, 15 minutes, whatever. And but really, you see my info right there. You can contact us. We're here to help. We're not doing this for any other reason than that we want to help you all. And like I said, I'm doing the working MBA right now. My brother just got out of active Marine Corps and he's at Wharton. So there's two different paths. He was an officer all the way through. I'll try and get him on the phone if somebody wants to look at a different path to a full-time MBA or that kind of thing. Please use these links if you want to find more about me or King Ranch or the cattle company. So I just have these 6 points here and I'll cover them. And then we'll have time for questions at the end also. So just going in order in the top left. So I know that part of this Elite Meat conference, you talked about LinkedIn on some other places. LinkedIn is a very funny tool because, when you first start putting yourself out there, putting your resume on there, talking to people, networking, it feels like you're in middle school on Facebook or Instagram, and it's an uncomfortable position. And everybody goes through that. Everybody thinks this is lame. I shouldn't post this. Everybody, well, 99% of people, and especially quiet professionals that a lot of you all are or should be, this is not your style. This is a habit you're gonna have to break immediately, because if you serve as a quiet professional in the private sector, you're gonna have trouble. It's gonna take you longer. You will be successful because you have enough traits to make it, but you've got to be able to talk about yourself, and you've got to be able to tell people why you're there, why you're meeting them, to take that chance like Kelly did. And I put Transition Mission and Herb Thompson on here. Some of y'all might know Herb. He's with me in that Cornell program. There's a few ex-military guys, but he's an ex-Green Beret. And he wrote this book, Transition Mission. And you can find him on LinkedIn also. Write that name down if you'd like. I told him that we'd be sending people to him, and he's happy to help. This is his role. He's now written a book, and so he's earning a living helping military members transition. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that up there. And if you want to get that book, also plug for his book. I'm sure it always sounds better when you say, hey, I read your book, I want to talk to you, for the guy. Next, the reserves. So the reserves absolutely help you with transition. They keep you in the club enough. Yes, there's the chance that you'll get deployed and ripped out of whatever professional career you have. But if you take a job and they know you're in the reserves, they're not going to hold that against you if you do get activated. But the reserves, it gives you a paycheck. It gives you 40 or 50 days a year or more, depending on which group you're with, to work and to keep doing what you've done and what you've spent so many years becoming an expert in, and whatever traits those that you have in the military. And so if you have even a small itch to scratch in terms of the military to stay in, I highly recommend looking at the reserves. I already talked to another friend who may be on this field today, Brandon Shambach, about going back into reserves. He wasn't in the reserves. He was active before. I think he's satisfied with that too. Same thing. He still liked it enough. He still wanted to do it, at least a little bit of the month. But the reserves is also full of people who are still trying to make a career. And so it's another network. It's another group rather than going to sign up for some, young professionals or something, young presidents, YPO. The reserves kind of serves as that, because there's other people trying to fight the same fight that y'all are fighting in terms of making a career while still staying attached to the military. So that's another conversation I'd be happy to have with you about the benefits of the reserves and the risks, I guess, too. Next, entrepreneurs in general is a quote from my grandfather, Jim Clement, the one that was with the Bloody Buckets. He said that to my father. My father got his MBA from University of Texas, and he said he was taking a class in entrepreneurship, and my grandfather said that to him. I didn't know they had classes in that. I think he said they're teaching that now. It was a real kind of passive-aggressive shot. Like, it's really hard to teach entrepreneurship, just like Kelly and I are here, and we've got these slides, and we're talking to you about it, but really what that is find something you really care to work hard about and makes you want to keep waking up and keep doing it. And if you make money doing it, if you don't make money, it's a hobby. If you make money, then you're an entrepreneur. And so you've got to look at it like that. Like, you got to get a job that's going to pay the bills, that's going to get you insurance, going to take care of you and your family. But if you're looking to be an entrepreneur, it's going to be something that doesn't feel like work. And as I go about King Ranch, whether it's working a horse or going to check on something on a far reach of the ranch, I can't believe they're paying me to do it. And I don't golf. I don't fish that much. I hunt only a little bit. In my spare time, I go to check my cows. I go to check different country. And, that's a company that I started. And, that's my paid hobby. And so that's why they're calling me an entrepreneur, even though both sides of my family have been doing this for almost 170 years each. I still want to keep doing it. And I started this business and got partners, and it's grown. And the initial money we put into it now is less than our revenue we make each year. And that's just in a few years. And that was on the side. And so when you find a job that feels like some people think of golf, then you can work weekends, you can work 7 days a week and not feel bad about it, especially you can get your wife or your children to help you out, because it'll just build your family's relationship, but also make you happy. Kelly hit this a lot, communication. It's the number one breakdown for a mission, for a company, for however you want to say it, all the time. communication is something where you've got to, you, the one who needs that answer or has that problem, you've got to be the one asking. You know, the people are always kind of standing around waiting to get taught. You've got to go find your teacher. Again, signing up for something like this is one step in that right direction. Not speaking to somebody that you've met through the course of this conference or through whatever networking you're to be doing, then you're dropping the ball. You've got to you've got to check in with people. You've got to do whether it's monthly, quarterly, find a reason to call them, email them, check them on LinkedIn or whatever. Just know what they're doing, know what they're interested in, and not just because you're trying to make it in the world or something like that. It's got to be genuine. You got to find the people you want to stay in touch with, whether they're interesting to you or they're just doing something that you think's great, and it's something that you would aspire to be, because people like to be complimented. And you all as elite troops who go to somebody who's built a company and show them respect and ask them those questions, they're going to feel good about that because they look up to you and what you've done in this world. And so if you're asking those questions and you're putting yourself out there as somebody who wants to keep learning, they're going to take that as a genuine communication of how they can help you. And so, I mean, you've got to just, if it's a pride thing or if it's something that's keeping you from doing that, you've got to just realize, like, look, I was an expert at one thing, but I'm doing something completely different. And I'm starting at day one. And so I have to ask questions and have to keep learning from those mistakes and learning from the mistakes of others, I guess, more than just yourself, because you're on a shorter time frame where in your late 20s or 30s, when they were making the mistakes in that business, you're now having to fast forward ahead into a career of middle management or upper management that much sooner. And you didn't get the time to make those mistakes in the field that they're in, that you want to be in. And that's the same with the ask on the next square there in the middle. You know, that people are always saying like, oh, I don't want to bother them, or I'm probably annoying them. Again, if you're coming with a genuine interest in what somebody's doing, you rarely will ever annoy anybody. And people always want to put the sticker up and the poster up that says, we support the troops. Call them on that bluff. Don't let them just say that and not mean that. If you work for a company and you say you're in the reserves and you got to leave for 3 months and they give you a hard time, wait, I thought you all supported the troops. I mean, that's not legal either. You know, that's a whole other talk about legally, they have to let you serve your country if you're in the reserves. And when they accepted you as an employee in the reserves, then they realized they exposed themselves to that risk of losing you for 3 to 6 to 12 months. But when somebody says we want to help, if it's something that you're interested in, then let them help you. Let them fulfill that promise they made, and make sure that's not empty. And so that goes back to that communication too. You will be very impressed with the amount of people out there that will say it, and many of them will mean it, that they want to support you and want to help you with your transition, just like I'm saying to you today. But if you think I'm lying, you call me. And if you think somebody else is bluffing, you call them and you see. And if they say no, if they're too busy, you move on to the next one, cross them off your list. But you're going to have to do that. And that's going to do more than you can imagine of making you move ahead in the world of the private sector. The last thing here is agriculture opportunities. It's kind of a shameless plug, but agriculture, the industry is becoming very dynamic. You know, it's merging a lot of technologies in terms of, you know, we've got a farmer today feeds 150 people. You can look at the stats. You know, a farmer used to feed his household or maybe 10 plus. Now it's 150. We've got to be more creative. We've got to be better, leaner, more efficient. And ranching is only getting negative criticism from people that think they know what cattle and wildlife and crops do to the ozone layer and it's all just horribly spun, not true. You know, what we do is very good for the environment, and we need good people from backgrounds like you all have to step into agriculture and be leaders. And agriculture in general provides something that is very similar, like Kelly was saying, it's very similar to the military background. there's a hierarchy, there's a sense of respect. There's also, down to a level where it's kind of the big boy rules, as people like to say. If you do your job, you'll be left alone. And I think a lot of military members are, that's something that strikes them as a big positive for the agriculture industry. Because as long as you do your job, there's not going to be somebody micromanaging you. And I know a lot of people from elite military backgrounds are used to that kind of mentality. Like, you've taught me, let me go do it. And ag needs people like that. And so I would not, if you have no idea what to do and you want to talk more about that, wildlife, livestock, there's also a ton of government agencies that help out, and they're very well funded. And I'm not just saying a cowboy job, which is also fantastic, but there's all sorts of jobs in the agriculture sector that would love to have you all sign up for. And I'd be happy to point you in that direction or answer any questions there too. That's
and I want to jump in there, James. Thank you very much for that, because coincidentally, I read, where did I see this? I saw this posted on LinkedIn today, actually, about how the SEAL team just rescued a U.S. farmer in Nigeria. And that is something that when I read that this morning, okay, that SEAL team went in there, this USA, farmer in another country was kidnapped, okay, for money. And here they were able to rescue him. And this came up during the virtual trade show earlier today, where somebody had the question of, I'm kind of thinking about taking my skill sets and going into security, things like that. And I said, even among agriculture, that is something that I think is needed, because we're starting to see, we're such a globally connected world. And I see a lot of cattle producers that also want to start, going global. There's the USDA that does a lot globally. There are people, even service members, while they've been deployed for many years, maybe they've made investments, overseas in some of these areas. That, you're right, James. I think that kind of talent pool that understands that global environment, but knowing that there's opportunities, for some of these maybe newer businesses to take shape that can align some of those things, making it easier. I know I get phone calls all the time from people asking, how can I, go global? How can I, with my crops or with my cattle, how can I do that? And so you look at forestry, you look at, a lot of different applications, a lot of government positions, and there absolutely is, I think a lot of room to grow with this talent group within ag.
Yeah, and I agree, Kelly. A growing population and a lack of knowledge of how to grow anything worth eating is a big problem. Some of the interesting ones in the last few years, the Russians hired a bunch of U.S. cowboys to go out to Siberia during the months when it's not frozen and run a bunch of cattle, fatten them on grass, and then sell them as grass-fed cattle off the Siberian peninsulas or plains. And then, they're also building what's called the Green Wall on the south side of the Sahara. They're trying to stop the Saharan desert from growing south. They're taking muck land out of the Nile River Basin and moving it to Dubai to see if they can turn the desert back into a good cropland. And, all of those opportunities are not just a farmer or a rancher. They are security, they are logistics, they are working with the UN, working with a third world country, the satisfaction. And how much is that the original Special Forces model is going into a country and teaching skills to a certain population. And that's exactly what these programs are starting to do, and the USDA does them in the country, in the US also, but now they're starting to work with some of these NGOs and to send people throughout the world to go do this in other countries and teach people actual tangible skills where they can feed themselves. And it's the biggest problem in obviously the third world countries, but it's going to be a big problem in a lot of the first world countries in the near future because the skills are being lost. And so the basic rancher and farmer and producer of any food is being stressed and pushed to the limit to produce more with less, and then being told that, you're ruining the atmosphere by the US government because we don't have good people who are eloquently spoken going and presenting what our case really is and how we can benefit that. I didn't mean to get totally into an agriculture talk on this. I know this is Entrepreneur, but I just see opportunity there, and it's something that could really use good, talented people that want to do something that could really change the course of history.
Absolutely. So on the other thing too, we wanted just to kind of highlight, this has been working remotely, believe it or not, has been a big topic ever since COVID hit. And a lot of corporations were having to have their workforces work from home. And I was starting to get pulled into a lot of different webinars, things like that, to kind of offer tips on that. And I thought this would be a good time as a refresher for this kind of topic as well, because for many of you, maybe your office will be at home. Maybe because of COVID, you will be having to establish your home office for a while, depending on who you work for. And I've had a home office now for years and years and years. Okay. And there is a method to that. It can take some time to get used to. And one of the things is, first of all, treat your home office like an office. Have an open time, a closing time. Remember to take care of you. Remember to take breaks. And, remember that transitioning and that transferring takes time. And entrepreneurs know that this is a marathon and not a sprint. There was another topic that came up today on that virtual trade show, which was about the overwhelming feeling of social media. Absolutely. I found myself, I've fallen into that before myself. You can get online and next thing you know, between LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, email, before you know it, a few hours have gone by. Make sure that, when you're carving out that time, that you're also, setting up some barriers as well as like, okay, I'm going to do this up until this time and then I'm going to take a break. Or, don't feel like you have to be chained to social media. I think I hear more people talking about how they are so burnt out. Okay, well, a lot of people have, what we're calling webinar fatigue. They've been maybe just fatigued with everything being remotely done, and it's causing a lot of burnout. And so, like anything else, you have to kind of set those boundaries. And know that you don't have to do everything all at one time in one day. The other thing with social media, there is this sense that it has to be perfection. Well, I can tell you right now, you don't have to be perfect. What people are drawn to now is those backstories, that authentic side that they learn about somebody, that person is real. And so, I find far too many entrepreneurs, they chase that perfection, or they hold themselves back thinking, well, when it's the right time, I'll do this. Well, when I have this, then I'll do this. It's just the way to get over any of that kind of stuff or fear is just to start. And James had said earlier, about LinkedIn and reaching out, and don't be afraid to ask for opportunities, or don't be afraid to ask somebody to be a connection. Absolutely. Don't be afraid to do that. It took me a little bit to get comfortable doing that. And it took me a little bit longer even to figure out, okay, how do I want to approach somebody? Not just be a connection. And once I found what worked for me, I was able to now start connecting better, faster, more with a much more broader and meaningful network that has brought me into a lot of different spaces. And you'll learn that as time goes on. And so if there's ever anything, that I can do to help with that, or James can do to help with that, so you don't feel burned out, you don't feel overwhelmed, just let us know. This is Sidekick. Sidekick is something that I started with my business. And really, when I did that, it was basically along the lines of everything that we've talked about today. Being an entrepreneur and starting out, you get kind of bombarded. You get bombarded with a lot of maybe different service groups that will tell you, oh, we can take your product and we can bring it out to market. We can, put your product out there on the internet. We can do market research for you. We can do all this for you. And it can become very overwhelming, and it can become extremely expensive. And so when I started Sidekick, it was really kind of a way to break down, hey, I know what I wish I would have had when I first started, and how to make that easy, how to make it affordable, and get right to the nuts and bolts of what a business owner would need. And a lot of it starts with your plans, your stories, your goals, then taking those action steps. And what I have found here is when we can go through your plan, the who, what, why, where, when, and also including that profit and cost analysis. The other trap that I see entrepreneurs fall into is, well, I'm all in, so I'm going to go down with the ship. Well, no. Okay. If you have to keep that money coming in somehow, even if it's a part-time job, even if it's working for somebody as you're working on your business, okay, it's all about that cash flow. You absolutely do not need to go bankrupt to come up with your idea or business. I didn't have funders, okay? I was always self-funded, okay? And a lot of that was from my jobs that I've had, and then ultimately sales. So when I say check your vitals, okay, it's just like when you go to a doctor. What's the first thing the doctor does? He checks your vitals, right? Your blood pressure, listens to your heart, you get on the scale, they weigh you. Your vitals tell, okay, where are you at right now? Same with your business, okay? Is your marketing and sales go hand in hand. Understanding how social media works. Ask for the order and close the sale. A lot of people I find have they kind of gloss over the whole marketing and sales aspect of it. Perfecting your pitch. Is your message clear? And then when you're launching, okay, by that time, everything should be in place. And that's what my program Sidekick is about. And believe it or not, I don't offer this publicly. It's pretty much only been done privately. And I am offering it to you guys from Elite Meet, because I do feel It is those steps. I can align you with people that can help talk to you about your profit and cost analysis. Okay. So that way you can make sure that what you're aiming for is going to be profitable to you. Okay. We can do a lot of these things together. So that's why I created Sidekick. I look at, you know what, superheroes have a sidekick. Batman had Robin. And that's what this is designed for, that help when you need it. Because as you move along through your business, or even on a corporate level, even if you're working for somebody, okay, you may run into some of these scenarios where you just need help for that short time. So if we want to open it up to anybody who has questions, I don't know how to take off the mute there on everybody. Are you able to do that, James? Or maybe
Sure.
Megan can?
Yep, actually, I can feed you the questions, Kelly and James, so I will read some off to you. I guess this question is for James. What were your biggest challenges transitioning out of the military? While you're still reserved, what were some of the challenges as you went into the business world?
So I worked first and then joined the Marine Corps after that, and I've been in ranching the whole time. So I didn't have challenges like you all would probably have, but I think it's maybe just kind of you've got to, it's kind of Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde deal, right? Like the military is a certain personality, and you've got to realize that that personality doesn't work. And even the reserves, it's funny because Monday, after you're done with just a weekend, 3 days, you got to kind of do some voice exercises to make sure you don't act the same to your people who aren't used to that culture. So I think it's just, just work on turning it on and off. And I know that's easier said than done, but that's a really beneficial skill overall, is just being able to stay calm. And I'm sure everybody on this call is good at that, but there's calm and tone. And, then there's confidence, but then there's immediately just be looked at as annoying, because there is a flood of military members getting into the workforce right now. Don't let them know you're military until you tell them you're military. And, don't wear it on your chest or wear it on your face or have the exact look, sneak up on them, because there's some that do, and it's just, you kind of want to roll your eyes because it's just too obvious. And yes, have pride in what you've done, but let them know that you can blend a little bit better than that too, if that makes sense. It sounds like I'm saying sell out. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, like, realize the difference between a military crowd and a civilian workforce.
Great, thank you, James. And the next question is, talk a little bit about the concept of being uncomfortable in transition and putting yourself out there and building your personal brand. I think that could probably apply for either of you to answer.
Go ahead, Kelly, please. Kelly, you still there?
What was that question?
It says, talk about the concept of being uncomfortable in the transition and building your personal brand. How do people get through that?
Yeah, when you're building that personal brand, what I have found is, what worked for me was, first of all, I had to get down to who was I, not like when I was with 3M. Okay. And at the same time, I was starting JAG Products at the same, all at the same time, pretty much. I really had to learn to get, move past who was I, as a corporate employee, who was I as Kelly, and who was I as the owner of JAG Products. Because what also happened at that time was my business partner I had at the time, his name was Jim. That's why the company name is JAG Products. He passed away suddenly, within 3 years of us meeting each other. So I was suddenly left with having to build everything on my own. And when you really want to figure out who's your personal brand, well, when you go out to my LinkedIn site, you'll see my personal brand statement is on there. And I find that that is so critical when you have a LinkedIn page, okay? And you want that first look to be, well, who are you? There's a lot of people who look at that brand statement. And what you need to do to take that time to figure that out is, start writing out some things about yourself that you would want somebody to walk away with. Okay. And then build that personal brand statement from there. And there's a lot of ways to do that. And once you do go through that exercise for yourself, it's like all of a sudden you start to see things in a little bit of a different perspective. Because again, only you can filter and craft your unique message. And when you do that, you own it. Nobody else can copy what is uniquely you. And that's what I think is important about building a personal brand statement. And especially as you take that time from transitioning from working for someone to suddenly identifying who you are as an individual.
And I'll just say on that too, like I'll give you a very specific example. I got asked to speak on this Elite Meet deal, and Kelly asked, "Hey, can I put a LinkedIn post about this?" You present it, you do the tags, whatever. You say thanks to Elite Meet, thanks to James, thanks to Kelly. It's kind of like just giving somebody a handshake and a wink. I said, hey, then I reply, I post back, hey, thanks Kelly, thanks Megan, thanks Elite Meet. And that is, you just play the game. It's going to make you feel, uncomfortable again, because you're not used to being like this. But when, you scratch somebody else's back, they scratch your back, they scratch you back. And, it is just a game, and just look at it like that. Don't think too much into it. Everybody's playing it. It's the way people move up in the world. And, some of the people who are the best at it, who might be the most annoying, are the ones that move up to the top and are running big companies already. And I'm not saying be the annoying person, but there's a medium between doing nothing to going, above and beyond. So you just got to, get comfortable with that.
Those are great points. One last question I think we have time for today is, what are some of the first steps I should take to begin my own business?
I'll start, Kelly. So that's a tough question, because I don't know what business you're in, what opportunities you have. If you're completely cold starting a business, it's a scary thought. If you're, hey, I'm pulling the loan out, I believe in myself, all that, maybe pump the brakes. Yes, we're all about you being entrepreneurs. I don't know how much money you saved. I don't know, how good your credit is, all those kind of things. So you've got to kind of take that in consideration. If you're just transitioning for the first time, you might look at getting just a job to start out. Break that seal with a job that's just going to be something where it's like, look, I'm going to get my insurance, because the military takes care of a lot of things that we don't realize. Some people have never shopped for insurance or bought a house because that was all taken care of. And so you've got to be able to, learn to do those things that, some people learn when they're 18, but when you're being an elite, troop for all those years, you were learning other skills while those people were learning those skills at 18. So, I'm not saying jump in and do the cannonball, like, really study it and take a job, take that safety net job to start out with good insurance and where you can get a house, get an apartment, and take those steps. If you're starting your own company, that probably needs to start out as a hobby or something. You get a partner. We've all got those people who are successful in the world. If they believe in you, you grab them as a partner and start something on the side. And then you wean yourself off that comfortable job till you're ready to go off on your own. But to go military to start your own business, yes, it happens. And I'm sure you all have a friend that did it. but it's rare and a lot of people crash and burn. So just kind of ease into that.
Yep, and I would agree with that too, because we see it's very easy for people to see a bunch of postings online that make it look like, oh, I did a crowd fund, or I did a GoFundMe page, or I just got all these investors. Okay, well, it doesn't happen overnight like that. Okay, and so everything that James has said is true, and that's where understanding, the money that goes into, starting your own business. When I find entrepreneurs sometimes, when they come to me, they didn't anticipate, some of the expenses that would happen. And next thing you know, everything went into one particular area and there was nothing left that, for manufacturing. There was nothing left for marketing or any of those other things that goes along with it, and so those are the things that, yes, you do have to approach that, from that cash flow standpoint, because even the SBA will actually look at that as a good thing. Even if it doesn't matter if you've picked up a job, as a waiter, okay, it shows that you have that mindset that, hey, I got to keep the cash flow going somehow while I pursue my business. Okay. And so as long as you keep some of those things in mind, you approach it with your eyes wide open. And if it's something that you're really passionate about and it's something you really want to go do, absolutely. I love being an entrepreneur. Okay. And I've done both worlds, the corporate world and both. There's just something about it. That is just me. To somebody else, it's not. They just want to do the 9 to 5. There's nothing wrong with that either. So it's finding what works for you.
Great. Well, thank you, James. And thank you, Kelly. It's been a great presentation and a lot of wonderful advice and feedback. Thank you both for your time today.
Thank you very
Megan.
much.
Take care.